a moment, a season in my life. I put you in my plans. I did what I thought was right. I worked so hard just to watch it die. Sometimes you have to leave some things behind.
Hey, it's Blastzone Mike, and welcome to Blastzone Mike's Fire Rock TV show. And today I have Todd Sheets. If you all know who Todd Sheets is, you need to get on board and figure it out. How you doing, Todd?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you, buddy?
Pretty good. The last time we talked, you were doing the TV show.
Yeah, TNT Jackson. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that going to get a second season or not?
I'm not really sure how that's going to work yet. I know it's been getting pretty good response from people, and everyone who watches it seems to enjoy it. That's what it's all about, really, for me. And then we'll see what happens. It was a true learning experience. Very complicated to do a TV series, and I learned a lot. It was a pretty great experience in that regard. It was a difficult shoot, but it was a very rewarding experience.
No, that was, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that one of the first things back from you starting to do any kind of thing like that again?
No, I had been doing horror movies again since 2012. I took a slight break because I had a heart attack, quadruple bypass surgery, all that mess, and then my first movie back was House of Forbidden Secrets, and that was in 2012. And we kind of continued going, and then we got up to the TV series. We had done Final Caller previously to that, and COVID had hit right in the middle of that. So then we were kind of shut down because of COVID. We couldn't do any production, and that was kind of our first thing back from COVID was
Mhm.
TNT Jackson. But it still had it was difficult because even during that there were complications. Cast and crew members came down with COVID, and it was kind of a mess. But we fought through it, and we got it done.
What do you think about your movies being on Visual Vengeance?
I think it's great. Rob Housechild is one of my best friends. We met years and years ago at the Cinema Wasteland convention, which is an amazing convention, and we had a great time and just became friends. Over the years, he was a fan of the movies I made, but he started his own label, and we talked about maybe putting something out, and then we started doing it, and then we just became really good friends. And so Visual Vengeance is perfect, I think, because it's kind of like the criterion of shot on video micro budget movies from the old days. And we were working on the whole catalog. I've remastered several of the old movies. And when I say remastered, it's really interesting because they have these things now that are so amazing because the quality can be so high on older stuff. We don't lose the quality like we used to when we try to transfer them and do all this work to them. And they've really been restored and remastered, really. I went back to the original camera footage as if I could on many of these movies, and pulled in the footage and laid it in frame by frame over the existing movie to make it look the best it could possibly look. Cleaned up sound when we could, just did anything possible to make the movie better. And then on top of the restoration, we also put the original old version on there too. So you have this restored, beautiful version, and then you have the original VHS releases also, just for the collectors who love those. There won't be anything other than just what they remember. Some of the restorations, they just look so good. Some people, the sound is so clean and things. Some people will probably say, "Hey, I want the old crummy version," and so we gave them that. So that way they have both versions. And in some cases, several versions of the movie came out. So maybe there's a version here and one overseas, and maybe there was one here that got better and we fixed it, or so like on the Zombie Rampage disc that they're working on. I know there's like 4 versions of that movie, and I think there's 3 versions of Goblin on there, and things like that. Everything we could possibly do. I kind of disowned those older movies from way back in the day, before 1993. That was kind of when I started doing much better on movie making.
Mhm.
But the ones before that, I feel like, they really lacked a lot of things, and I got a lot of hardship for those from people. So I wasn't the biggest fan just because of what I went through. But I loved the experience of making it with all the people and everything. So when I found out that there were people that loved the movies as they are, I didn't quite understand it, but I said, you know what? Like Rob said, they're going to get out anyway. They're going to be put out there anyway. It's part of the deal with my catalog, and uh, I can either be involved and make them the best I can, or I can just basically let someone else do it, or just let them go out as they are. And I thought, you know what? If I'm going to be involved, let me at least do the best I can to make them look the best I can for the people who love them. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, I don't think I've got one Visual Vengeance Blu-ray yet. And, I plan to. It's just a matter of uh, money and time, I guess. I did get speaking of how they do movies and how they can restore them. I just got a deal with Movie Zing, and they sent me over a couple of things, and one of them was the John Wayne movie, The Searchers, on 4K. And as I'm reading about it, everybody's saying that the color is so much more vibrant than even The Wizard of Oz that just came out on 4K. That the way that they went and they color corrected everything, and I guess that movie was one of the first movies shot on Cinescope Vision or something like that. And when they went and they colorified it. They didn't have to do a lot from, like you said, the negative to the final product. So I'm kind of excited to see it because on 4K it's supposed to look just absolutely amazing. And then I've also talked to people that are doing 3D now, that are taking movies from the domain, public domain, and make them into 3D movies. And let me tell you, that to me is just amazing that people can take and frame by frame make this into a 3D movie. I never even knew it was possible. But I mean, with the way things are today, Todd, I guess you could do anything, right?
It's pretty amazing. I personally am not completely. I think some of the movies look really good on 3D. I'm not completely behind it 100% because Disney's kind of been doing that for a while. Like the Thor movie was shot, and it wasn't shot in 3D. It was shot in 2D, and then they made it a 3D movie, and things, and it just looked weird because, like when the van was driving across the desert, it looked like the van was floating in the air. Just weird things, but they're going to perfect it. It's going to be good. Um, I do love the look of the Searchers. I think I've been really pleased with what they're doing with 4K films nowadays. I think with the technology we have, there's no reason not to use it. And they came out with several of these decks that you can take your mini DV, your Super VHS, your Betacam, whatever, and we can transfer that digitally now straight into a computer without loss of any kind. And then we can take, it's only as good as your image was when you shot it. So if you shot your movie on Super VHS or whatever, or High 8, that's as high as it's going to get. But you can keep it that high. You don't have to, because it used to be when you would edit these things, every time you'd edit it, you would lose a generation of information. So it would start getting soft and warbly,
Mhm.
and all the videos used to look terrible. VHS was such a lossy format. So now that you can do it straight from the footage, it's really nice because you can really, we're not using AI or anything like that. Some people are using AI to upres older movies. I'm not doing that. I want it to be as close as possible to the original, but look as good as it can. So we're trying to keep the AI out of it and things like that. Just go straight, But also with this new equipment, it's really nice to be able to go directly into the machine, and you don't. lose any information from that original footage.
So
So
you've seen the Searchers, you say?
yeah, yeah, it's a beautiful print. It's I love all of those. I've got the Clint Eastwood, Sergio Leone westerns, and those are just beautiful. They're
Yeah,
all
I can't wait to watch it, man. When I got my deal with Movie Scene to get movies, I saw it and I was like, I gotta have it. It just said something to me like, hey, there's 100 movies you can pick from here, but how about I take this one? So that's the one I took. So I was like,
yeah.
I just got it yesterday, so I haven't been able to do a box opening or even open it. I'm leaving on Thursday to go to see my granddaughter for her birthday, so I'm like in the middle of a bunch of stuff,
Hey, I
but
understand. Yeah,
you know, but on the other hand, Todd, people love VHS still because
they
like
do.
I got just the other day a bootleg version of Terrifier on VHS. So people still love VHS, and VHS is getting more and more popular. Are you seeing that too?
I just picked up Terrifier 3 at Walmart on VHS.
Good for
It's
you, because I couldn't find one. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, they went. I guess the problem is you've got scalpers, man, and these guys
Oh yeah.
they grab that stuff and sell it on eBay, and I hate it. It makes it impossible. And then you got the guys who grab things and just stick it on a shelf, and they don't ever even check it out, or and they
Yeah.
get multiples of them, and then that just drives me nuts. I'm like, look, man, there's a lot of people out there. Let everyone have one, for God's
And
sakes. But
Walmart only gets like three of them probably, and
yeah, I think they
you're
got
like
five.
you're lucky because probably somebody hid it somewhere and then they put it back where it was supposed to go. So that's what happened with that.
Yeah, it was, or I hit it just right when they were stocking or something. It's kind of weird, but yeah, you're right. It's the VHS market is important, and like even the newest movie that we're doing right now, it's going to come out on VHS for sure. We're going to be putting it out on. We've already discussed it. It's going to come out on VHS because that's what it's about. I mean, Final Caller was on VHS. TNT Jackson, I'm not sure. That's with Retro Media, Fred Olin
Yeah.
Ray. So I'm not sure if they're going to do a VHS. I'm going to kind of ask him about it and see if he wants to do that, or if he'll allow us to do it, maybe, um, like license it for VHS. So we'll figure it out because I think TNT Jackson kind of is perfect for the VHS era, but at the same time, I'm just not sure how that's going to work. But I do know that the werewolf movie that we just got done with and we're getting ready to put out here, I know it's going to be for sure on VHS because
You
I
know,
think
it,
people
it's
love it.
wild, Todd, because like Terrifier 2 was the first new VHS in a Walmart in like, I don't know, 15 years, 12 years. And then take from that, Alien Romulus came out on VHS, but
Yep.
who the hell saw them? I never saw one of them. And then Terrifier 3 came out on VHS. So, you know, I know for a fact, back when you remember the movie Bumblebee,
I do.
the people who reviewed copies of that got a VHS of it. It was put out on VHS through the company as a promo for people to review. But that was the first VHS I know of that came out like majorly. I know David Sterling's putting out VHSs, and there's all kinds of independent cinema that's doing VHS still. But for big box stores like Walmart to go, okay, we're going to put out VHS again, and then everybody go after them, you'd think that the industry would want to put out more, correct?
Well, it's all a matter of the cost of duplication and things. I think it costs a little bit more now than it used to because there is such a smaller market that it's just all a cost thing. Because we never stopped putting out VHS. Even House of Forbidden Secrets from 2012, we put out VHS, and we did special edition VHSs for like Grindhouse Video and stores like that. But even then, finding a duplicator to do the VHS tapes and things, it was pretty weird. And there for a while, they would only do like that SLP speed, which I hate, or EP or whatever they called it, depending on your player. I hate
Yeah.
that the quality on that. So it I had to search out someone to do SP speed and make it as nice as possible. It was not that easy to do, and it wasn't cheap, and then you got to find people who are still making the tape. So it all comes around to what it's going to cost, and the more people do it, it's going to get better. The costs are going to get smaller and cheaper for people, and we can do a better job of making sure more movies are put out that way. They're doing cassettes the same way. We got cassette soundtracks coming out, and it's pretty cool. And like the
Yeah,
Moonchild release
that,
from Visual Vengeance. Visual Vengeance did a cassette for Moonchild and the Blu-ray combo, and it was a really cool thing for people who love the movie because they got a little bit of both. And the Blu-ray is already such an amazing quality thing for Moonchild, and then to have the original soundtrack cassette with it, because we released one of those back in the day, and this was actually completely, it was like a complete reissue. It was so nice, and it looked,
that's
a
neat.
lot, yeah, same artwork, and we did it really cool. Added a couple of bonus tracks, and just make it, as nice as we could. But it's just harder to find duplicators and companies that are doing that. So it's just one of those things where the more the
Well,
majors do it, the better
let's
it'll be for us.
let's do a shout out to a couple people like Sterling, David Sterling, still putting out VHS. SRS Cinemas putting out VHS. You have Gator Blade in Florida, and of course the Sleaze Box. It's going out of business, and sometime in March. They're not doing any more films, and all their films are going into. They're not going to have them available. I don't think anywhere. SRS or Sleaze Box, which is a shame because uh, they put out some pretty good stuff like Death Escort Service and American Holocaust and a bunch of movies like that that I own on VHS myself. That they were kind enough to send me, and really feel bad for the industry with James not going to be doing movies anymore. You know those companies, right?
I'm friends with those guys. That's my Tampa crew. Sean
Yeah.
Donahue and the guys at Sleazebox. That's my Tampa crew down there. So those guys are friends, and I love going to Tampa Bay Screams. That's where I first was able to meet the guys. I was invited down for their very first convention they ever did, and it was such a good time. And a lot of those guys, I've known for years and years. Matter of fact, I got a message from Sean today. I'm getting ready to answer. So we've known each other a long time. Of course, Ron Bonk and SRS Cinema I've worked with, and I've known Ron since the '90s. When he was doing City of Vampires. That was a one that he worked on with Matthew Jason Walsh, and it's all part of a circle with us. We're all kind of like a family. And that's what it
And
should be.
when you lose one of the people like James Woods, which James is, the Sleaze Box put out a lot of stuff, and uh, I've known those guys since they did American Holocaust, the very first one, and it's a shame to see them not going to be doing anything anymore. I
You
mean,
know, it, I think it's a shift in priorities too. This is a very difficult business, and you have to be willing to take a lot of hits and lose a lot of money. And it's just after a while, you have to prioritize. If you have a family, certain things you have to decide what's important for
yeah,
you. And so. Chris is a hell of a guy, and I stand behind him 100%. I all those guys I do, everybody. But there comes a time when you decide. I've been doing this since 1988, and there were times when I had to back away and do other things because I just couldn't do it. It
yeah,
also depends on where you're at, how difficult it is to film in that location, where you live, things like that. So there's so many factors involved, and I believe that Chris Woods is one of those people who I think loves it, but he's got a family, he's got priorities, he's going to have to decide what to do with that. And when you got loved ones and your wife is saying, "Hey, man, I appreciate it. I've supported you for 15 years, 20 years, but man, we got to figure out what we're going to do now because you're not making any money at this, and we got to
yeah.
eat, things like that." So it gets to that point where you kind of just got to make decisions. And
As long as we still have Bob Glazier doing movies, I don't care. Okay, I love
yeah,
Bob.
yeah, Bob, he's
Bob
a
is
good guy.
great, man. He's great in everything he does, man. He's just. And I've interviewed Bob a couple of times, man, and he's like the Don Juan of freaking everything there, man. You know, he just. The last one I watched with Bob M was the vampire one they put out.
Yeah, yeah.
And,
I,
and,
I hung
and
out with
Bob was
Bob down
great,
there, so
man. You got
yeah.
to get Bob in one of your movies. That's what you need to do.
I've been thinking about it. I've been talking to him about it here and there. It's just sometimes it's just logistics, just getting
Oh
him up
yeah,
here. But
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So what
ch
else is going on in your life now? I mean, what do you got coming out? What's cooking up there?
well, we got a new one. We worked on all summer and we kept it kind of hush, because it's hard when you're making a movie. You don't know how long it's going to take. And I've kind of changed my philosophy where, when I first started, it was quality or quantity. We did as much as possible, but now it's more like quality. Let's take as long as we need to take to make it as good as we can possibly make it. And then if you tell people too soon and they see that you're making this movie, then they get, anxious and they're waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And finally they give up. So I'm more of along the lines of let's shoot the movie, let's work on the movie, let's concentrate on that. Then afterwards, we'll let people know what we were doing. And so this was kind of a top secret thing we did. It took us almost a year, from the time we started till now. And it's a werewolf movie, and it's different because when I was young, like 9 years old, 10 years old, I used to shoot short films on Super 8 film. My dad would get Super 8 film and I'd use up all the film that he had for the holidays. I would go out and I was like, but I would make these science fiction movies based on a character and a spaceship called the Amber Star and the character of John Apollo, the captain. And it was kind of a cross between Star Wars and Star Trek. And that was a big thing for me growing up. Um, and so I was like really into sci fi and horror. And I kind of combined them. He would fight a different monster and stuff like that. And so this is kind of me bringing that full circle because this movie is basically about the crew of the Amber Star, including the Captain John Apollo, who is in space. They get a distress signal and they go to investigate, and there's a ship and it's kind of dead in space. And they get in there and they find a couple of survivors in cryo tubes. They take them back to the Amber Star. The other ship starts to implode and blow up, and it's really cool. It explodes all over everything, and they get away by the skin of their teeth. And turns out these two people in the cryotubes are actually werewolves. And so the opening's got a bunch of werewolves, and then we got werewolves there. And I'm like, let's do werewolves in space because it's kind of cool. When I was younger, I drew a comic book story based on the Werewolf by Night, who I loved so much, and they sent him to space to get him off of the planet Earth. And one of the things I remember was I said, it's always in space, there's always a full moon. And so I just changed that around a little and it became the tagline, there's always a full moon in space. My buddy, uh, Dave Bailey and I were talking about it one day and out in LA, we were eating dinner and we were pitching ideas and I told him about that idea and we kind of moved the words around a little bit from in space, it's always a full moon to it's always a full moon in space. But that's our tagline and it's true. And the werewolves are always werewolves in space. So it's pretty cool. It's except for in the cryotubes where they were in suspended animation, they just were human then. But once they get out of there, man, all hell breaks loose and
It's
the whole
werewolves is a big thing right now. You know, they just put out werewolves, and then they just put out uh, werewolf about the guy that turns into one.
oh, the Wolf Man,
David
yeah.
David Sterling just put out last year a movie called Cocaine Werewolf, which if you like shot on film, cheesy, you over the top, it's great. You know, it's a great movie. It's through
I love the movie
Deadline.
Werewolves. Yeah, I thought the
I think
Werewolves
through
was really good.
Deadline. So yeah, I mean, it's cool that it's something new now. It's not just zombies or just vampires. Hopefully this werewolf thing will take on and we'll have more, movies like that. I feel like that every time you turn around, there's a new zombie movie, and
Right.
you can only do so much with zombies, man. They're just the
True.
same thing. I mean, it's like you, and vampires have been shot to death with Blade and you know New Moon and all that. It's just it's cool that it's a werewolf thing, man. That sounds exciting. And
Yeah,
was it
it yeah, it is. It's pretty cool, man.
was it fun shooting it and doing all the special effects?
I got to tell you, extremely difficult, but probably the best shoot I've had for a movie in maybe 25 years. This was probably the most uh it wasn't easy. Making a movie is never easy, and it was
Yeah.
extremely just doing this kind of movie, I found out, was extremely difficult. But the thing with us is we can't do the same thing over and over. Every movie we make has to have a different style, and I want to push myself as far as I can to learn as much as I can. And I pushed myself really, really hard on this movie, and um, it's the most ambitious low budget, micro budget movie I've ever done, and that's saying a lot considering the stuff we've done. And this thing is um, it's very rewarding. The effects were very difficult. I wanted to do as much as I could practically, so I created actual models for the spaceships like the old days, and
Oh
shot
wow.
those accordingly. Didn't do any CGI spaceships. There's a little bit of computer. Nowadays with visual effects, you can't really do like we can't go out and do matte paintings the old school way. I can't shoot it on film because I can't afford it. But we did do matte paintings, stuff like that. We just did it all in the computer. That's not CGI. That's because it was all done by hand. There were scenes in here where I did frame by frame animation by hand, the laser blasts. That's all done by hand. We took it into Photoshop and made it a film strip. And frame by frame, I went in and put in the lasers and put in things like that. Some of the transformation effects, we did it practical. And then I went in also and did things frame by frame in the computer by using the airbrush tools and things in Photoshop to enhance it. So I wanted it to be as true to the old school as possible. I the movie's a major, major love letter to movies like Forbidden World and Galaxy of Terror, the Roger Corman sci-fi movies.
Uh huh.
If you took something like, when I was doing the pitch, I said it's like The Howling meets Forbidden World, and that's really kind of how I feel because Joe Dante it was a huge influence on this as well. And you might see him fleetingly if you blink. He might be somewhere around in this movie. I can't say much about it, but he might be running around in here somewhere. So
Well,
there's a lot of homage there. And Jim Wynorski is a good friend, and we go back and forth a lot on the internet. And he was a big influence and a big help. He's over the years really given me a lot of good advice and support and told me how they did things. And we built these sets from scratch. We built like everything from scratch. And it was so difficult, but so rewarding to build these sets and then turn around and look at them and go, holy cow, we built this stuff. It looks like a spaceship. It's pretty cool.
so two last questions for you. First one, do you still hate Goblin as much as you did before?
Yeah, I like I said, I re we when we did the restored remastered version of Goblin for the release that's coming out, revisiting it, it's still not my favorite movie, but I respect people who like it. I respect what we were trying to do. We just didn't have any knowledge of it. I went through a lot of hardships, a lot of hell. People gave me a hard
Yeah.
time, but I have to say that, you know, if they watch Goblin and then they watch the new one, they're not even going to realize it's the same filmmakers. That's the thing that's pretty amazing.
Cool. And last, how can people reach out to you if they want something signed or they want to buy something from you or anything like that? What's the best way?
Well, they can find me on Facebook, of course. Also, you can go to zombiebloodbath.com and send me an email there. I'll give my email address right now. It's horror25, HORROR25 at AOL.com. I'm still with AOL because they allow me to move big files. I can transfer big files with AOL. A lot of the others don't let me do that. And yeah, just reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to talk to people anytime. I just love hearing from people who love this kind of stuff, my friends out there who watch all of this. And I just want to thank you, and I want to thank everybody who's ever watched an extreme entertainment production. I want to thank all the cast and crew that I've got to work with over the years. I'm lucky because I've worked with so many amazingly talented people, and I've got great friends out there like you who love what we do and who support what we do, because without you, we couldn't do it and there'd be no reason to do it. So I want to thank you guys very much, and thank you for this interview, man. I really appreciate it.
Well, it's good to come back and talk to you again. It's been a minute. And, like I said, people need to get on board if they don't know who you are, because you put out some pretty amazing stuff in the B movie category of things,
I appreciate it. Thank you.
It's really incredible what guys like you and Chris and Sean and Ron and all of them have done over the years as far as movies go. Oh, and can't forget Trauma.
Oh yeah, my buddy
Trauma
Lloyd. Yeah, Trauma. Yeah, good guy.
And I think he's retiring this year, right?
I'm not sure. He says things like that, but you never know.
You just never know.
It's true. I just love Lloyd. He's a good guy. He was in my movie House of Forbidden Secrets, and he's been a big help to me since I was a teenager. I used to write to him back then, and there was no email. He was just very helpful. Always been very helpful, man.
I'm a Sunday morning sinner in a white church, on my knees praying till it hurts, in the back row with all the other lost souls. I'm a double shot of whiskey in a dive bar, a cowboy looking for a wild card I can take home. For the sun, I'm long gone.